Hi, it's Jillian from Jilly Bean Pottery. Welcome back. This is my second video, so if you join me the first time, you'll see it's a little bit different around me. I'm actually sitting outside my studio, so you might hear strange sounds from my neighbors and things like that. But I'm here. I wanted to show you some other underglaze techniques. This one is called Mishima, and it's done on greenware clay. And the it's my neighbor in the background. And so you make the piece first, you imprint, I don't know how well you can see this, you imprint a texture, you can kind of see that as I get a little bit closer to the camera, and then you paint an underglaze over it. I'm using Amoco Velvet. Underglaze is this one in turquoise, and the reason why I like the Velvet by Amoco is that it fires pretty true all the way up to cone 10, and so if you're firing at various temperatures, whether low fire, mid-range, 5, 6, or 10, you're gonna have a pretty decent result. So, you know, it's a nice option for that. There'll be a link either up above or down below this video in the blog post that you can click through to check it out for yourself. So, the process I'm gonna show you is called Mishima. And I'm going to remove, you'll see I have the texture, I'm going to remove a lot of this underglaze. And underglaze, for those of you who don't know, is a commercially made colored liquid clay, or close enough. Because it's commercially made and formulated, it can actually be used at greenware, which is what I'm doing, or at bisque, which I've done in previous videos. You can check the link also up above or down below. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it yet, to see what I did there and used it in a different way. The nice thing about it is because it's also commercially formulated, it stays pretty true to color. So if you're making your own, there's a lot of experimentation and things like that to do. But with the commercially made stuff, you don't have that. You pretty much have test tiles and guarantee of color. So that's kind of nice. So this is actually a terracotta pot, so it's a low fire piece. So it'll fire to a nice bright terracotta orange, and then it'll have this turquoise inlay, which I think will be really nice. So one thing is the Mishima, as I mentioned before, you're gonna make the piece, you're gonna add the texture of some sort, and some people will draw lines or they'll carve. I used something that I imprinted into the clay I found object that I found recently, and then I painted this over. You want to let this dry. This is leather hard, but you can go all the way to bone dry. The one thing you want to be careful of is that you're just careful with the piece while you're doing what I'm about to show you, because it is so much more fragile. You do risk breaking it, and I've done that before unintentionally, not paying attention, and you got to be careful. So just something to know. So you can use one of two things to do Mishima. My two preferences are either a drywall sanding screen, which you can get at any home improvement store. It's in, if you're looking for it, it's not necessarily always by the sandpaper. It might be, but it's a drywall sanding screen if they ask. It comes in bigger sheets than this, and I like it because you can cut it up into any size, and if you feel it, it looks like a screen, but it's rough and has a grit just like sandpaper. So you can use this. You can also use a metal rib. This is a standard pottery metal rib. So I'm going to use this. I find it gets me a little bit crisper line. This is a little bit more distressed look. So you can alternate back and forth, see what works best for you. So I'm going to start with the rib, and I'll show you both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to scrape down. And I'm outside. You'll notice as I'm outside my studio, you'll see the trees behind me. I live up in the mountains. There's some snow. It's maybe in the 40s today. It's a little chilly, but this is a high dust process, and so ideally you're doing this outside because you do not want that dust hanging around your studio. The more dust that you have, it's not the dust you can see, it's the fine particles that you can't see that can cause issues. So I'd much rather them go out into the atmosphere out here where they can't harm, and linger, whereas in my studio they'll linger. Ideally, I'm also wearing a mask or a respirator, but I can't do that while I'm videoing, so just know that that's probably the safest thing as well. So you're going to take this and your rib, and you're going to scrape. And I like to scrape kind of with the texture that I've imprinted, because I find that when I do that, the other nice thing about being outside is all of this dust is going somewhere, so you may want to have like a trash can or plastic bag or bucket or something to catch it all as well. so you can't see that part of what I'm doing, but also a good idea. So I'm just scraping, and I like to go, if possible, with my texture. I did a line texture. I don't know how you can see that, so it makes it a little bit easy. I have these great vertical lines. I got this wooden stick placemat. I didn't bring it out with me, so it's in my studio. That might be more work than you might want to see me do, but I am scraping back. And I can scrape as much or as little as I want. So that's like the great thing about Mishima, is that you can scrape as much or as little as you want, and you can, you know, leave it more distressed, you can leave it more patchy, however you want to do it. I'm going to switch to the sanding screen so you'll kind of see. The nice thing about the sanding screen is because it's flexible, and over time as you use it, it gets more flexible. You just rinse it off when you're done and it's ready to go for the next time. Is that it gets into nice little corners and things like that, whereas this rib isn't so flexible to do that. So I'm just going to sand, and you can see there like all that dust that I'm accumulating, which is why I'm outside breathing the cold for you guys. It's a little chilly. I have my sweater on, but it's a little chilly. We're having like a brief respite from all the snow, and it's been raining instead, so that makes it a little bit warmer, but it is not in any way, shape, or form warm. So I have my sweater on in some layers, but after I do this, I go back inside. So this is a great project, and you know, some people will use this in a couple of ways. They'll use it to I just want to show you briefly. Sometimes I'll bring a brush to brush all of that off. The difference between the metal scraper and the sanding screen. So you can see here the metal scraper, and how well you can see that nice up and close. And then the sanding screen, you can see, is a little bit more destructive in some respects. So it gets down there a little more. So here I still have kind of like the depths of my texture, and here it's kind of just the inlay of the color line. And so, you know, how you play with that, that's up to you. You can definitely get down. The screen kind of goes a little bit deeper right away than the rib, so you can play back and forth and see what you like, or maybe switch back and forth as well. The other thing to keep in mind that people like to do with this technique is you can layer different colors. I've only done one color on here, but you can layer different colors and over time reveal just some, not all, you know, and so you can get some great effects that way. So I'm just gonna keep going on this. I might not do the whole pot for you on video because it's really cold and I might need to take a break for my fingers. But you know, just some fun things to do. A lot of people will do this with a carving, so they'll carve lines, and it's a great way, really easy way to get color in nice precise lines. And you'll notice too, I haven't painted the whole pot, right? So I just painted where my texture was, and I left bare face. No need to scrape parts that you don't have texture on, so you can save some time that way too. The other thing you want to be careful of is if it's windy out when you're doing this. I am outside. There's a little bit of a breeze right now today, but if it was super windy, obviously that dust could blow right into your face. You don't want that. The other thing people like to do with this is they like to, you know, what I think is kind of nice about it, they can do what I did, which is instead of carving a line or drawing some kind of detail, you can actually imprint texture. And so because I imprinted a texture, I'm still getting kind of a fun distressed look that I can't get if I, you know, we're just gonna try to glaze this. It might have, you know, it might be a little bit more different, might have a different look. And again, I can go as deep or as not with this as I want. And you'll definitely find some parts where you've painted it on a little thicker. I try to do just enough to get it in the crevices. I try not to get too crazy. You don't want to be scraping, you know, forever kind of thing. You can see I'm getting all full of dust. You can wear an apron to prevent that. And if you're sensitive in any way, shape, or form to dust, definitely respirator. Even though you're outside, it's really important to take care of yourself. in your studio practice. You know, some good practices while we're talking about safety, you know, obviously scraping outside is one of them, but the other thing you want to do, you know, when you're making stuff is you want to wet clean with a mop and a sponge before you sweep. It's really easy to go, oh, I'm just going to sweep it all up. Seems so much faster. It'll clean up better too. But the reality is you're going to just kick up all those fine particles of dust that you create. And so, you know, the wet mop captures them all, and then you can actually sweep after. It's a much better way. And the other thing that I found, you know, that works really well for me in my studio practice is I change the mop bucket periodically, probably every couple days. You know, the cleaner the water, the less you're moving around more dust and leaving dust behind. So, you know, you don't want to see swirls of dust on the floor when you're done. And I find that if I clean the mop regularly and the mop water out, that I don't have those problems. So you guys are going to see me do this whole thing while I'm talking. I found this great placemat at the thrift store. A friend of mine and I went thrift store shopping just a couple days ago, and I kind of tore it apart a little bit and did some things to it. I can't just leave things alone, but it's actually a really fun tool. It's just a simple placemat that I kind of stretched out a little bit, and so I got, you know, and twisted, so I got a little bit more you know, interest out of it than just the straightforward lines. And you can see here, I did not break my piece, yay! But you can see here, you know, I've, you know, definitely could come back and do this part, you know, and I have some patchiness. And so how much you clean that up is up to you. But you can see here where I have this nice, great, you know, inlay of color that I can use. And, you know, now, you know, if you're not a big glazing fan, I know a lot of people aren't glazing fans. I'm a huge glazing fan. But if you're not a big glazing fan, this can be a great way to avoid glazing, right? So I have the nice dark orange of the clay, I have this turquoise, I just need a clear, right? I don't even have to think about it. I could just put clear, you know, or this is a planner, I could leave it bare, you know, without glaze. And so sometimes it's a little bit more in your control, a little bit more steady color, and so that's all things to think about. So hopefully you'll check out and try Mishima. Sorry you couldn't see the whole process, but I did have to let it dry before I showed you how to do it. And so again, standard metal rib or drywall sanding screen. You can buy these in packs, they last forever. I cut them up into little pieces. I find it's easier to control the little piece, and then it really does last a long time. And then you just, you know, use up little pieces so each sheet, you know, lasts a long time. And, you know, play with it as much or as little as you want. Try different textures. I've done all sorts of different imprinted textures in Mishima. Again, you can layer multiple colors. That's where the sanding screen might come in a little bit more handy if you're doing multiple colors and you're sanding, you have a little bit more control over how much depth sometimes. But again, alternate, see what you like best. So enjoy. Thanks for watching.